Pahare sir, our Managing Director Dr. Naveen Arang sir, and all the faculty member of Vishisht School of Management. And this is the 7th online guest lecture is going to be held today, and that is a very relevant topic. That is impact of ITES, that is Information Technology Enabled Services Industry post-COVID scenario. Because this is the industry which is the least affected industry in this lockdown and in this scenario, and that's become a cynosure industry, uh, but have some other kind of challenges with this industry. And we have today with us Mr. Ashutosh Pahare sir. He is a very versatile personality. He's an entrepreneur, industry consultant. Along with us, he is a very renowned biker also. He is a member of Harley Assurance of Indore. Without taking much more time, now I request Professor Yashri Dubey for welcome address.
Thank you so much, sir. Should I start? Am I audible to all?
Yes, yes.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I, Professor Yashri Dubey, extend a very warm welcome to one and all present here to our 7th online guest lecture on impact on IT-enabled service industries post-COVID scenario. IT industries today play a very important role in the development of any country. It provides meaningful employment opportunities to the labor force and is a significant contributor in the national GDP. It also increases productivity and takes up a country higher in the global value chain. In the coming session, we'll see how this COVID-19 pandemic will affect the IT industries. Now, let me take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Naveen Narang, Managing Director of Vishisht School of Management, Dr. S.M. Iqbal, Director of Vishisht School of Management. I would also like to welcome our very special guest and speaker for today's session, Mr. Ashutosh Pahare, entrepreneur and industry consultant. Mr. Pahare has more than 30 years of experience working in the IT-enabled services and telecom sector. Over the course of his long industrial career, he has played a vital role in many multinational corporations like Hutchison, RPG, IBM, Convergys Corporation, etc. He has experience in designing and executing operation strategies, process improvement, and QA training for large MNCs, which encompass different verticals such as customer service, telecom, healthcare, banking, and tech support. Apart from offering consultancy service to medium to large size corporations, Mr. Ashutosh Pahare is a successful entrepreneur and an amazing career counselor. We're honored to have you with us, sir. Last but not the least, I welcome all our valuable participants for joining us and hope that today's session turns out to be a fruitful one, and definitely it will add some value to our existing knowledge. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashri. Now I request Pahare sir, please proceed further.
Thank you so much for inviting me for this meeting, and I hope I am audible clearly, and
Yes, sir.
do let me know if I need to speak a bit louder. I think first of all, and as I was mentioning, I think it's a fantastic opportunity to share some of the insights related to the industry and what might happen and post-COVID scenario. And I think my effort is to kind of give you a little bit of insight on how the industry functions, what kind of challenges do we anticipate. At the same time, what are the opportunities we have? Because each and every challenge has, along with that, has an equal opportunity. I think it totally depends on us as individuals, how quickly we can spot those and grab those opportunities. So, like I think it was mentioned, I think the IT industry as such contributes to about 180 billion US dollar industry. So it's a big industry and probably one of the largest private sector employer also. It has its own nuances. So it for some it looks pretty glamorous. For some it's pretty taxing as well. So coming to I think scenario and our today's topic, I think most of the businesses, I think this particular pandemic had taken it by surprise. I don't think anybody was prepared as an industry or as individuals to kind of anticipate that the entire world can come to a standstill. So we had, I think, as IT industries, we use the terms. There are certain processes which are known as disaster recovery management. I think now we have that particular team in India as well. So, and which has done wonderful job in saving lives. And we have seen that in the recent cyclone in Odisha, there was not a single life which was lost because of this team. So similarly, IT companies also, they have a very, very robust processes in terms of disaster recovery. And the second is we call the BCP, the business continuity process. So all these things are fairly laid down in detail, and everyone is clear in terms of, from the documentation perspective, what an individual has to do in case of any challenges, or disasters, so to say. Having said that, I think these are kind of, we had this processes, which are primarily focused at, when we talk about disasters, let's classify them under natural disasters and man-made disasters. So natural disasters could be earthquake, floods, fires, etc. And man-made could be, riots, strike. Again, we can take fire, terrorist attacks. So these are kind of the man-made disasters. So there is very, very clear, like I had mentioned, that processes which are laid down to manage or what needs to be done, to mitigate the risk and minimize the impact on business as well as the customer experience. While we had all these, fairly detailed documents, but nobody was prepared for a business continuity process or a disaster recovery process where the entire world comes to a standstill or comes under lockdown. So this was a huge, huge surprise for everyone. And nobody was honestly prepared for this kind of situation because it wasn't anticipated at all. So, I think the moment this hit or started kind of spreading from Wuhan, and there were certain early indicators, and people did anticipate some challenges, and had some of the early movers had started quickly working on this particular process. But I think it's not so simple. It's not so easy to kind of create backup plans for these kind of disasters and the scale of these disasters. Some companies who were the kind of nimble-footed and moved quickly, I'll give you one of the examples. One company kind of shifted desktops and almost about 25,000 desktops in a fortnight. And those desktops were given to the employees to work from home. Connectivity was provided to them because they're essential thing for them. But most of the companies were also bounded by their contractual obligations because this data, what you have in offices, is extremely sensitive. It has client information. Apart from that, there are a lot of things, which because of which the InfoSec comes into the play. So information security does not allow even desktop to be moved from one desk to another without prior approvals. And here we are talking about moving the process to somebody's home. So I think that was the biggest challenge in such cases. The companies who couldn't even do that, what they did was quickly they identified certain hotels and with all the precautions moved their employees to those hotels, and they were kind of provided all the amenities so that they can quickly come to office, work. Entire sanitization process and everything was in place, but I think that cannot compensate for the entire workforce. I think what they were successful in doing was to create a kind of skeletal staff and to kind of give the essential services so that it does not come to, where you don't have any kind of services. Especially, when you have certain tech support services with clients like Microsoft, where you have server level enterprise support, where any technical troubleshooting call can last up to 24 hours. So the employees have to kind of work in shifts, work as a team to make sure that those servers are up, because that's the backbone of the company for doing their businesses. If that collapses, I think the company also stops functioning. So those were the kind of services which were extremely critical, and I think they did some good steps. Some companies just couldn't cope up, and they had kind of raised their hands that they can't do anything. And obviously, the clients suffered, the customers suffered, and we'll see the consequences of that once we come to the new
Ashutosh
life.
sir,
Yeah.
Ashutosh sir.
Yeah.
सर आपकी आवाज ब्रेक हो रही है.
Okay.
Maybe due to network.
Maybe you take a look at that. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Okay. So I think that is what the most discussed topic. I think, when it comes to impact, I think IT had relatively lesser impact vis-a-vis other industries because they had this magic bullet called work from home. So having said that, it had its own advantages. One is that there was least disruption for certain processes where they could quickly, move employees and make sure that they started working from home and provided support. Advantages, I think, in the current scenarios, what they could see that the employees were very happy because they felt very safe and secure. They didn't have to travel out. Parents felt very, very safe and secure that the kids were at home and they were working from home. Initial results have definitely shown that the productivity levels are also very, very high. So, and I think one of the reasons is also, I think it's because of lockdown and they don't have any distractions and have no options but to work from home. And so that's, I think, a very, very positive spin to this. Another advantage from this is, from the company's perspective, is that they, in future, I think, post this thing, when this becomes a new normal, the work from home concept, they will be able to reduce their office space. Their requirement will go down. So cost of lease rentals will come down. Their maintenance costs will again significantly come down. I think these industries are known for spoiling their employees. So I think it works 24/7. So we have a lot of things like, the cafeterias, which are well stocked. Employees get free food, meals, tea, coffee, whatever choices they want. They have, they can play games. There are a lot of employee engagement activities. So all those costs, plus the maintenance, so costs like, the housekeeping costs, the electricity costs, air conditioning, all these costs, will be kind of saved. Disadvantages, which I see clearly, that what we will have to see is that whether this model is sustainable. And because this will require a lot of, one is that how long can you keep the productivity levels up? and the employee motivation levels up when somebody is working from home, because at home they won't get the similar environment of what you get in an office. So you have a nice desk, you have all the facilities, phones, infrastructure, printers, you know. So everything is available there. You can go and enjoy. So people will immediately start missing them. I think they won't have these kind of facilities. I forgot to mention another major cost which companies incur is because they provide also the home pickup and drop air conditioned taxis. So it's a huge, huge cost. So they will miss on those. The company will save on those, but the employees definitely miss on those. Many companies, you know, so it's also the team bonding. So the moment a particular shift ends, there is immediately a shift debrief. The start of the shift, there is a brief. So there is a lot of bonding which takes place, team spirit which is there, which will not be possible in an environment where it is kind of the work from home on a consistent basis. There has to be a lot of infosec, threats which will be there. So if an employee has an access to client information, for example, credit card details, personal data, so these challenges would be huge, you know, because any leakage of this data or information will put a lot of challenge, and they can be sued, you know, to a huge amount. So, and that is part of the contract. So I think that would be one. Data security again would be a huge challenge. So I think as I was mentioning that, you know, things like from the employee perspective, certain companies I can talk about in Bangalore, they have this the Friday concept, Friday evening concept, and that is where in the freezers the soft drink bottles gets replaced by the beer bottles. So employees can have beers, they can you know, watch movies, they can sit down, play games. So those are the kind of benefits, you know, a lot of employees they get and are kind of provided by the company as part of the employee motivation and retention. So I think that could be a big challenge from HR perspective to kind of how do they plan to kind of make up for that and still kind of keep the employees motivated. So that is the kind of from the industry insight perspective that the challenges. Now let's kind of take a step back and now look at what from the company's perspective, what kind of challenges do we expect? So I think the biggest challenge which companies will face is the reduction in volumes, the business, because majority of the companies, and I think the recession is something which is kind of, the predictions are that it is inevitable and it is going to be very, very severe. So that still kind of leads to business, you know, reduction in business volume. Business volumes will lead to kind of reduction in the employment. So we will anticipate a lot of layoffs which will happen. As a result of that, the company's complete forecast will go for a toss because the revenue forecast will not be met. The clients will also now get into the contract renegotiation. So I think because they are also under, their finances are also, their revenues are under severe pressure. And I think, guess what? It's only a question of time when they will come back to you and they will renegotiate the contract. So that is something, you know, which wasn't kind of anticipated, and the companies which are nimble-footed, they will be again, you know, will be able to take this benefit. There will be a vendor consolidation which will take place. Earlier, companies had kind of done a lot of, you know, they had spread their businesses thin. So a lot of small vendors were also given certain tasks because of this factor of cost arbitrage, because somebody was getting a better deal at a lower cost. So that has to, and because now there is an absolute, they were not able to cope up. They didn't have the financial strength to kind of provide backup. So companies will have to now relook at that. They will also relook at their geo-specific strategies, that which business is safer in which particular geo. So all that remodeling again will take place, and the business will shift from one particular geo to another particular geo. Country is like Philippines. Philippines has a very, very huge workforce from the customer service skills perspective. And they are known for that. Even though they are constantly hit by natural disasters, whether typhoons or earthquakes or these kind of things are very, very frequent there. But I think the resilience or the work ethics is extremely high in those countries. And hence the customers, despite all these issues, they create backups, but still they kind of not just retain their business in that country, but also grow their businesses there. And that is helping them in a big time. That is probably the highest revenue generating industry in that country. So those are the kind of factors, you will also kind of, the companies will have to invest a lot, on one side, your revenues are under extreme pressure. Second side, you will also have to make huge investments in terms of automation, in terms of developing new tools, adopting new technologies. So, and that is purely for survival. If you do not have funds to do that, customers will not give you business. So they will have to, the complete business model has to be looked upon differently, and there are a lot of, they will have to be very, very innovative in terms of, they will have to handhold their customers, they will have to work as consultants, and then, take their customers along, then only be able to retain their businesses. Otherwise, it is extremely difficult for them to even survive. Because if client doesn't have funds, then the expectation would be very, very clear that they would need technology and innovation to cut costs. But at the same time, it should not impact the customer experience. So I think we are in for a very, very tough times ahead. And again, like the people who will sail through this are the ones who will kind of think out of the box, those who will move fast. And that is the kind of those who are able to relocate their businesses. Another important factor is reskilling their employees. So if a particular new tool is being developed or new technology is developed, how quickly you can train your staff to adopt to that particular tool technology. So again, automation will play another role, that will also kind of help them to bring the cost down. And the biggest cost is, the employee cost. So the cost related to training, cost related to quality, all these are huge costs from the employee perspective. And automation will help them not just bring down the cost, but also bring in some consistency in terms of quality and customer experience. So because if you look at it from customers' perspective, they will also look at, how they can avoid human interaction, at the same time solve their issues. So that is something which they will be kind of, in terms of automation, cloud computing, all these things will kind of will be the major motivation. Savings as far as the, again, another cost from the company's perspective would be that they might have to redesign their offices, keeping in mind the distancing. And here, because if you increase the distancing, again, you will need a larger space. You won't be able to accommodate the similar kind of headcount in the same space. So that will increase their further cost. But if we kind of look at this automation or the volumes, again, the savings will come if they can kind of have a very, very strong work from home kind of a concept tool with complete InfoSec in place. I think they can significantly save their costs from the real estate management, I think, and like I had mentioned, the employee related costs, transport, maintenance. I think all these costs can be saved, which can, again, these are fixed costs and can result in huge savings for them. So it's not only a bad scenario. I think there are certain positives also which might happen. So it's a kind of something which one has to see how the balancing can be achieved in this, which will not be an easy thing. So again, another challenge would be that there will be a lot of layoffs which will happen. And how do you, the biggest challenge will be to keep the employee motivation high in this kind of where, your colleagues are losing jobs, my friend is losing a job. How can I keep myself motivated? And the back of the mind, I will always have this thing in risk that I hope, and I don't know how long my job will be secured. So how do we, and that is when, they need to kind of engage very, very closely, very, very frequently with these employees. So those are the kind of challenges which these companies, and these are kind of very, very skilled employees. Their training cost is extremely high and the learning curve is also steep. So if you lose an employee and if you hire a new employee, the learning curve by the time it comes to the similar efficiency is huge. So these are the challenges which this industry will see, and will have to find out ways to deal with it. That how do you kind of get into, especially I think when it comes to the training and teaching. So the various curricular, how they can do it online for the employees, for the upskilling sessions. So I think while we have the challenges, we also have the opportunities. So when we talk about opportunities, I think it's not that the whole world is lost and nothing will happen and it's the doomsday. I think in the new normal scenario, uh, when we will see certain companies who are not able to cope up, there are other companies which are extremely agile, and they can take decisions fast. They have the financial strength to take those decisions or back those decisions. They will definitely benefit. There will be a lot of investment in terms of tools and technologies, and if they are able to develop that particular those tools and technology, they can make huge money. It's like the vaccine, the new thing. Anybody who develops a vaccine can overnight, those companies, pharma companies, fortune will change. So I think a lot of focus and attention will go towards the innovation, big data, AI, automation, infosec, so robotics. These are kind of certain areas where you will see a lot of focus and attention. And I think the marginal players that they will lose in this particular game. So I think that is one. And like I said, that companies will also have to now look at, providing the complete basket of services. Earlier, it was more of a niche segment, wherein kind of this particular task is given to this particular vendor, this particular task is given to the another vendor. So now, managing all those things will be extremely difficult and having a control over that. So the large companies will primarily will have to look at, how they kind of bring them under their fold and offer that one single point of contact to these connectivities, and to these vendors. And offer, without going to different vendors, it's one vendor who will provide all solutions and you have one single point of contact. So that's a huge opportunity again, for us to kind of look at. Like I said, that there will be savings if you work smartly and if you organize things, this work from home concept, it's a great concept. And it has both pros and cons. But at the same time, if you manage it well, I think there is a huge saving involved in that. And at the same time, I think it gives you a huge flexibility in terms of workforce. So if you hold an employee at an office and ask him to do 2 hours of overtime vis-a-vis if somebody is sitting at home, I think there will be a big difference. And the employee sitting at home with some bonus amount thrown and would be happy to kind of do that. So I think that is something which we have to look at. Another thing which some of the clients may ask is the localization, so they would kind of ask for a local support. So with this, it was kind of, the support was kind of, if it's, for example, if a client is in UK and the support is sitting in Singapore, he'll take a flight and immediately fly down to attend to that particular problem. So there wasn't a requirement for that particular person to be based, on the site or in that particular city. But in the new scenario, now the clients might ask that, no, I think with this uncertainty around the travels and this pandemic, we would want somebody who's on site that will give us more confidence. So that kind of, that will create a lot of local employment. And having said that, it's a double-edged sword. So you might lose some of your businesses which were here, and they'll move to either onshore or on-site. So that's again, there's an opportunity for those particular countries or those particular locations to create employments locally. But at the same time, you might even lose from the other country. So I think the clear message is very clear and audible that those who are kind of nimble-footed, those who are willing to take, those who are willing to take risks, those who are willing to think out of the box, I think those are the ones who would kind of come out winner. And in this time, I think what you also need that you will have to, as an enterprise, you would kind of need that, you will have to play multiple roles. You just cannot get away by playing the role that my SLA says that I'm only a vendor and I'm supposed to be answerable, or I will deliver only as defined in the contract. I think you need to go beyond the contract. You need to show clearly, add value to the customer, You need to handhold. You need to show him that this is how he can cut costs, even though if it impacts you. But I think that is where the partnership spirit will come into the fore. That is where clients will see the benefit, in you having as a partner rather than just a vendor. And I think the day client starts looking at you as a partner, not as a vendor, there is a fundamental shift. There is a fundamental shift in the relationship. You I think, gain a lot of benefit in terms of, getting the additional businesses from your competition. You also kind of, negotiate on your pain points, that this is where, I'm spending more, so I need your help, your support to kind of fund it, or let's co-fund it. And client is open for all those ideas. So it's a huge, opportunity for us, because client is already under a lot of pressure. And if you work as a consultant rather than as a vendor, I think the relationship can only grow stronger and stronger and can be built from strength to strength. So I think that's what I have to say, I think, and I think I have completed my time limit also. So just to conclude, I'll say that those who will move quickly and adapt to the new normal will survive this pandemic. Not just survive, will also grow. And as the old saying goes, this will be a survival of the fittest and the fastest. So it is still very, very relevant in the current scenario. And that is what we are going to see. Those who are not will extinct. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Pardon, sir. And very informative, very exhaustive. And you have completed a very balancing figure of these opportunities and challenges for the ITES industry in this particular scenario. Thank you so much. If anybody have any questions, kindly unmute your mic and introduce yourself, then ask your questions from the speaker.
If anyone of you have any question, may please unmute their mic and ask. SK Chapra ji, do you have any question?
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Please.
Sir, introduce
Good
yourself.
afternoon, sir. In this scenario, how we build trust among the employees and in each individual is the, you said that it is very good for profit making. And
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Please,
everyone
if
is,
you could repeat that again, slightly louder. Yeah.
hello.
Sir, please repeat your question a little bit louder. Chabra sir, am I audible to you?
Yeah, now you are audible.
Yeah, sir,
Am
we
I
are just
audible to you?
requesting you to please repeat your question a bit louder.
Yeah, sure. Sir, how can we build a trust among the employees or the working individuals who are working from home or outside? Recently, we have experience of working from home, but in recent years, somebody is taking care in office and have control. Now each and everyone, if each and everyone is doing their work from home, then I don't think, or what is your opinion about the trust among the employees or the individuals?
So I think I'll just
Yeah,
Pahare
can you
sir,
hear? Yeah.
sir, I repeat the question. The question of Chabra sir is ki,
Yeah.
how do we can create, you can say, a trust factor when we are working from home? First, this was his question. Second, it was like ki, if this scenario continues, what will be the trend? Am I right, sir? Chabra sir?
Right, sir. Right.
So, Shabla sir, I think,
Actually,
can you
sir,
hear
I
me?
want to include some IT industry working in that model, and recent experience is that they uh, control over the offices also. If everybody involved in working from home, then
Hmm.
how would be the situation can be controlled?
So, I think I'll go back to, I think, your first question, if
Yeah,
that was around the trust factor.
yeah,
So, I think there are very, very clear-cut tasks which are kind of assigned to the people, those who are working from home, and those are time-bound tasks. Um, Even though they are working from home, but they have their regular meetings like what we are having right now. So those are the kind of meetings which are there, and regularly kind of updates are taken from them. And that is why, kind of, and you understand, whether the person has worked, not worked, or if, uh, second, I think in the current scenario, people do understand that I think if they don't work, their job will always be under threat. So you cannot. I think it is in your interest that you kind of give better productivity uh, and secure your job. As long as you are adding value to the organization, I think you are safe. If you're not adding value, I think you're not required. So that is very, very simple. Um, is that does that answer your question? First question?
exactly, exactly right,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. Uh, Second
So
question
how the
was,
sir secure the job? It's now that threat, the technology becomes a threat for the uh, employee. It, it is employee rahe pareshan, or the it is right ERP.
so I think only way I think whether it is IT or any other field, I think the rules don't change. So if you're, I think if you have the right skills, if your performance is up to the mark and you have high work ethics, there shouldn't be any problem. So I think that's the best way to secure any job. Why just IT job? Having said that, I think at the same time, many times, even though you have all these qualities, but if there is no business requirement, and I think that's an unfortunate scenario, you'll still lose the job. That's the reality. And I think I was reading in the US. about 38 million people have already, lost jobs so far, and they have filed for the, compensation. So that's the kind of situation we are staring at. And I think what might happen is also, I think, because our largest piece of business comes from US, I think so, and because of the cost arbitrage between rupee and dollar, so we have the maximum profitability also coming from there. But with the election in sight, I think what they are also trying to do is to kind of create more jobs onshore in US than offshore. So they will try, and I think the pressure is on them to kind of do that. I think classic example is the Apple, while we were kind of thinking that Apple will move the entire business from China to India. But guess what? That is not happening. Trump has very clearly, asked them that they should move that piece to US onshore. So, and they are willing to even give them concessions, funds, everything, but they want to create jobs because it's the election year which is coming. So that's, I think, your second question. Third question, I think if you can just repeat.
Hello,
Yeah.
Shabda sir.
Not clear, sir.
Clear, no? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you
more
so much.
questions? If any of the participants have any question, they may please unmute their mic and ask. Mister, do you have any question? Because you have raised hand.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
But
I'm Umesh Upadhyay, Assistant Professor of Vishisht School of Management. Ashutosh sir, firstly, I congratulate you for this wonderful session. My question is that, what do you think that adaptation of automation works properly in wellness industry or other industry like day-to-day services provider industry? Wellness can works. Automation can works.
I think it's, I will say that artificial intelligence and automation, so they kind of go hand in hand, and there will not be any industry which will not be touched by them. So I think advantage is very, very clear that you kind of reduce the number of errors because of human intervention. You improve your accuracy.
Good,
You
sir.
also reduce your dependence on human beings. So consistency, quality, reduce dependence on human beings. You don't face like the thing I mentioned, the learning curve, somebody who train, and by the time that person becomes very efficient, it takes a lot of time. So all these challenges, and plus the moment if that person kind of drops in between, you again start from zero.
Thank you, sir.
So, yeah, right.
Any more questions? Yeah, anybody?
Please feel free to ask questions. I mean, I'm not that bad as I look. So,
Sir, I have a question, Professor Namandeep Singh.
Yeah,
yeah.
please.
So, Professor Namandeep Singh from Vishisht School of Management. It's a small question, sir. What would be the effect on the telecommunication companies as the people are working from home? They have a much more load to give the internet services and the online services. And as you know, nowadays, because of some technical issues, we can't connect to Zoom meetings and many more things. So, if there is any role, or they are managing the things as India is going work from home.
I think in the current scenario, the telecom industry is in a big flux. So you must have seen that because of the Geo's entry, there is a huge pressure from revenue perspective on these companies. So for them to kind of, on one side, for survival, they need to kind of have funds to invest, at the same time compete and offer better services. And on the other hand, they're struggling to even retain the customers. So I think they are in a major flux kind of a scenario at present. And I think the standards will, I think the demand will only increase, and they will have to kind of make sure, earlier it was most of their services were kind of outsourced, and there weren't very, very stringent SLAs around. And I'm sure all of you must have experienced by talking to their representatives on phone, or getting your problems resolved. So they are not that competent, they are not that skilled, and I don't blame them. I think probably they were not trained properly. So you will see these challenges continue. Still a little bit of consolidation happens, and some sanity comes back. You will definitely see the increase in service quality. But till such time, I think we will struggle. Hope I have
Thank you.
answered, Namandeep. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yes. Any more questions? If anybody have a
No, sir, I don't think so.
now, any questions?
No, sir, no, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Professor Robin Nima to propose vote of thanks for students.
I, Professor Robin Ima, on behalf of Vishisht School of Management, extend my heartiest thanks to Pahare sir for giving his valuable time and sharing his knowledge with us. So, the one sentence which you have said, I really like that one, and I think this fits the best at present of time. At present time, survival of the fittest and the fastest. So, if we say, if you take in our industry or it in maybe in telecom industry, as you said rightly in the last question, or it in, you can say, in the terms of IT industry. So everyone is struggling on this part only. Everyone is trying to survive first, and they are just trying to cope up with the conditions as soon as fast. I thank all the participants for sparing their time and joining us for this lecture. I thank our director Bal sir and our managing director Naveen sir for their valuable suggestions and giving us opportunity to listen to such an eminent speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks. It was a pleasure interacting with all of you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.